It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, June 8th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is going to revisit some draft eligible prospects based on the fact that the Flyers now have two picks in the first round.
I mean, I would trade a draft pick for some sleep, honestly.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about Oliver Moore. We're going to talk about Ryan Leonard and what to do with that 22nd overall pick, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, you're doing heroes work here after travel snafus getting back from Vegas, but so much going on with the Flyers, and I think their approach to the first round picks, multiple now that we have, I think deserves a little bit of a revisit
Mhm.
here again to talk about the strategy overall. We'll get into some of that for the 22nd overall pick later in the show, but I wanted to revisit a couple of draft eligible prospects for the first round. We talked about them later or earlier in the year, one of them even last fall. And given everything that's happened with them in the interim, and now that we have two picks to talk about, would that change our approach to this seventh overall pick? And I want to start with Oliver Moore because we originally talked about him in January. It was the January 26th show, to be specific. You can go back and listen to that for some more context. He's 18, 5'11, 176, room to get bigger, but not small by any stretch of the imagination. One of the top guys on the U.S. national team development program. He's a center and had 8 goals, 17 assists this season. I think like the thing about Oliver Moore for me and looking at what he does and what he did on the development program team is that there's so much buzz about that top line, right? And we're going to talk about Ryan Leonard and kind of compare the two in
Mhm.
the next segment. But Oliver Moore is the guy that carried that second line. And
Mhm.
so I think when you look at him versus a Ryan Leonard, like, when you look at Oliver Moore in a vacuum, you have to take that into
Oh
consideration that
yeah.
he did not have the benefit of that superstar line
No.
on that team and just had a tremendous season. And like two of the things that I want to talk about with him, he was a plus 42 in the USHL this year. And people joke about the plus minus, but that is a very significant stat for a guy like him as a center, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. No. There's no doubt about it. I mean, his all around game is terrific. He plays on the power play, scores on the power play, so that's a part of it for sure, and he deserves that and deserves to get credit for that. What makes him special is his speed. I think he's the fastest guy in the
Mhm.
draft. His speed through the neutral zone is tremendous, and
Unreal.
yeah, and that's something where the Flyers don't have anybody like that. Nobody like that that could take the puck off the rush. He tries to model his game like after Dylan Larkin, and I think he's faster than Dylan Larkin. And we know how
Could
good
be.
Dylan,
Could very well be.
and we know how good Dylan Larkin is. And that's something where if you have a center like that who's really good off the rush and he has a high hockey IQ, danger. That's dangerous for the defense because he can score. He's got a great wrist shot, or he can make a great pass. And so that's something where all of a sudden now this guy's streaking up the ice. You've got the defense is back on their heels, and that's something where that's a missing element in the Flyers right now in their whole system.
Yeah, I think so as well. And then you add a couple of other skills that he has, above and beyond that. He was third in faceoffs in the U18 Worlds tournament at 61.3%.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal against, top competition of his peers from around the world. And, he was on the second line. So, you look at strength of competition, you put
Mhm.
maybe the tiniest of asterisks next to it, but still, I think that it's extremely important skill for somebody to have. And then, you mentioned his shot. He's actually a prolific shot guy. Like he's just going to take a lot of shots on
He is.
goal. In that tournament, and you look at his stats over this year, he averages almost 3 shots on goal per game, which again, is real solid and shows a willingness to take that shot.
And a tremendous playmaker. So you have both of
Yep.
those. So the mix of offense there is great, and what makes him dangerous is that. And he's going to get stronger. He works out on his legs a lot, and he works out for explosiveness. So again, you're talking someone like Clayton Keller kind of speed, but in the middle, and that's what really makes him dangerous. So, and he'll play that position. Like he's gonna play that position. That's what he can play both. He can play the wing too, but I think
Right.
he'll play in the middle. And so you look at all that and you say that's pretty good. Now, oddly enough, with all the scoring he does, he can't remember ever having a hat trick. When I interview him, which is kind of interesting because you think a guy like that certainly would have like a hat trick. Couldn't remember. He doesn't know if he's ever had one. Um, he's also looking forward to the combine. Like he is a guy that wants to compete, and so he will
Mhm.
compete at the combine too. The bike, the endurance. I expect him to be
Right.
damn good in some of those things.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and, we're gonna talk about the combine next week, when you get back from
Yeah.
it.
Well, one hint about the combine, though. So for guys that did play in Worlds, they had no chance to test for like to work out for the combine. Like Adam Fantilli said, he has done zero for the combine. But lucky for him, everybody kind
He's
of
Adam Fantilli, right?
they already know what he is. Now
Yeah.
Oliver Moore was also, at a disadvantage for that. So we'll have to see. But yeah, Fantilli doesn't matter. But it's just funny because he looked at me and laughed. He goes, I haven't done anything.
Right. So I wanna talk about the potential of him being available at 7, because you look at where he's ranked, it's somewhere between actually 9 to 16 is the main range.
Nah, I think they've got it wrong,
And
actually.
yeah, I think that it's probably higher, and I think that there is a possibility he'll be gone by 7, but, I wouldn't put that at too high a possibility. I do think there's at least some chance that he'll be around, and, especially, given that the spotlight has been on those other guys, right? That he could end up dropping because of the shiny carrot of the other guys from
Yeah,
the
but
development
speed
team.
is the thing that he's the only one everybody's looking at for speed. That's the thing where I think so. I think it's a 40% chance that he's there.
Yeah.
I think in teams' minds, it's higher. His ranking is higher than in rankers' minds, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, like honestly, Will Smith probably goes 4.
4, yeah.
And so I could see more going 5 or 6 as well, especially if teams are skipping on Michkov. Um, he's going to be right in that conversation.
Yeah, I think so. He is a University of Minnesota commit for
Mhm.
next year too, so that's something to keep in mind. He's gonna go into a really strong program in NCAA hockey, and really have a chance to hone his skills at center. He'll play center there, and we'll get to see more of his speed, pun not intended there,
He's a really
but
good athlete too. Something that I wrote in my EP Ringside article. His mother has run 10 marathons, and so he was a mile runner in track. And he says he's fast off the ice too, which not everybody is fast off the ice, even though they're fast on the ice. But he
yeah,
is. And so that does show you just the level of athleticism that he has. And I do feel like, yeah, he's just not focused on enough because the other guys do take a lot of the spotlight.
totally agree. we're talking a little bit about, is he going to be available? Is he not going to be? Ryan Leonard is another possibility. Could be available, might not be there. But if both are available, it's an interesting conversation which direction you would go in. And we are going to do that coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting excited for all the fun you will have. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute tickets and flash deals. Plus, they have views from your seat, which is so important for me. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Also, tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you'll never have to dig through email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we have one more show this week to bring you, and all of us over at Locked On NHL in the individual teams are doing a mock draft as we speak and putting that list together. We are going to start talking about our thought process going into who we picked in the mock draft. We're not going to tell you who we picked yet. You got to wait for the full release of that, but we're going to get into our methodology on tomorrow's show. So stay tuned for that. Looking at Ryan Leonard, we talked about him for the first time way back in November 17th, which was pretty early, but he was one of the early standouts, right,
Was.
in this draft class. So that's why we brought him up so
In one of
early
my
and has,
early rankings, I had him ahead of Smith, I think.
yeah, yeah, I think I remember that. But he has had a real solid year since then, and was obviously part of that top line that we talked about on the USA U18 squad. And he wound up being third in scoring overall in U18 Worlds. Um, he was part of that top line, obviously, and just I think really the main question is what makes him stand out on that future Boston College line.
So his strength, he's physically strong, even though he may not be the biggest guy. There's some rumors that he might be close to 6 foot now, but he is great. But he's 5'11", but he's really ripped. You could see it. He's got like the veins already, and so he kind of reminds me of Eichel in that way, where Eichel was like that at a very young age. So he's
Hmm.
already got the strength. He knows how to get to the net. He's got good two-step quickness. He's nothing like more skating wise, but he is fast, and so he has a good speed burst where he can get to the net, can shield the puck with his strength, and can get there. Has a great shot. So those are a few of the things. He doesn't like losing puck battles, so he'll fight in the corners. That's a nice thing. He's smart. He's really a good hockey IQ. He's a great battler. So there's 4 or 5 really top-notch things about him. And again, the only reason you might say he's behind more is because he can't play center. Like that's a
Right.
reason.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that when you're drafting a forward, are you looking for the flexibility of being able to play both positions, or do you really want a guy who's a center in particular because you need that in your system?
If I'm speaking for the Flyers, I'm going for the guy who's the center, because they're both terrific. You can make an argument that maybe Leonard's a little better scorer, but Moore has got those other intangibles. And depending on who you put Moore with, that could elevate his game a lot more than even what we're seeing now. So based on that, I have to go with the center because I'm looking at the center depth in the organization, and it's not great.
Right. And you know, y- I think for me, for the Flyers, like that 94 points he had with the NTDP this season in 57 games, like that is going to be hard to overlook, right? The
Yeah,
scoring is just much higher than Moore's, but I think that goes with the territory again, being on that top line and being a winger, like in
Yeah,
terms of the structure of how they run their offense on that team, and especially having a chance to watch so many of their games.
yeah, and Leonard's
In it,
two-way game is very strong too. Like, it's really good.
yeah, it really is. He's a guy that's gonna get back, and I noticed a lot of his play in the neutral zone in terms of his positioning to try and just cut off any offensive rush on the other side, to be
Yeah,
able to do a quick transition back on offense. He is super in tune with those kinds of
yeah,
plays.
yeah, he is. So again, I think Leonard will be the higher scorer, but um, the way this game is, if you have, let's say, Moore is your top line center, um, and you have a couple of other elite players with them, let's just say for argument's sake, Gauthier is a winger, and you got him with him and somebody else. That's going to elevate his game. That's going to get him more points, but it's also going to make that line very lethal. Um, the Leonard line wouldn't be as lethal, but they'd be really hardworking and could wear you out kind of line. So,
Right.
based on the way the league is, and based on what you've seen, like just if you want to just say the Stanley Cup, because there's too many copycats right after the Stanley Cup going into the draft. Speed's on display. I mean, that's been a big thing. So that's where I think the speed will win out because he can score too. It's not like he's a guy who you don't know if he could finish. He could finish. He's just not going to score as much as Leonard. And the question about Leonard is he going to get to the net as much at the next level? Like
Right.
that's because that is his sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think, that's really the question for me, because there are slightly different skill sets here, right? So again, do you want the speed? Do you want the center? Or do you want a high scoring winger that can be a big part of a top line on your team? But, when you're looking at draft eligible prospects and what they need to work on, you want to look at what are they missing in their skill sets, and how much of that is teachable versus how much of that is instinct. Yeah, in terms of each of them, I think that with Moore playing center and the way he plays center, I feel like his ability to adjust to the NHL level could be an easier path than Leonard's. I think that the kinds of things that Leonard does well, like he's going to have to learn to do them at a higher speed and with more physicality, and it's just going to I'm not saying he can't do it, but I'm saying that I think it will take him longer to make that adjustment, and there's a little bit higher risk there.
Yeah, and Leonard can play either side, and actually has played some center, but I don't
Mhm.
see him playing at center. But I just thought I'd add that because he was the most versatile guy that they had. Like they literally
Right.
could put him anywhere, and he could do the job. Like that's tough though when you get at the next level. Like you don't know if that's going to happen. But
Right.
and his speed is straight line speed, and that speed burst. That's where his speed comes in. So it's like, look, I mean, he got a lot of scoring chances, but he makes a lot of them too by creating that space on the ice. So it's a good debate, but I just feel like I would go more there. And if I'm a Flyers fan, I'm worried that because of this elite speed that Moore has, that somebody bites at it before they get a chance to have this argument.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think that maybe some people outside of, a guy like you, Russ, who watches the development program meticulously, um, might be just distracted by the top line guys and overlook more.
Yeah,
And
they're like
that's
a
where I think
show. Like they're a show in itself. They are.
yeah, and so I do feel like there's maybe a slightly bigger chance there than we'd like to think. Now, it's also hard to compare like what the media people who are evaluating these
Yeah,
prospects and doing mocks versus, what the teams themselves are doing, right? That could be a completely different ball game there, but it just feels like to me that more is being overlooked and that the Flyers could have a prime opportunity there.
yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you what a scout said early in the year. And this is straight out of my article for Leonard, that he's a top 20 pick, top nine forward in the NHL, powerful, smooth athlete, strong skater with speed, has one-on-one skills, heavy shot, great release, physical and hits with impact. So, and clearly he's risen from that top 20 now, because in November a scout's never going to be 100%
Right.
on where a guy could fall. But everything else is 100% accurate what he told me, and that's where your plan has to set in a bit, because if you're taking BPA, you could literally call this a draw.
Mhm.
I would call it a draw. And then so the next thing in my mind is after that, if I'm calling it a draw, it's what is our plan here for the next 4 or 5 years on what we need and what we're looking for. And the Flyers
And
have a
and
lot of
who's gonna
shooters.
complement who we have in our system already?
Right. They have a fair amount of shooters already. You got Forster, you got Gauthier. These guys are shooters. Now Leonard is another shooter. Yes, got a heavy shot. Um, but you don't have a uh, a guy who's got that speed through the neutral zone who could be a big time playmaker. And he's not the best playmaker in the draft. He's not close to that, but he's a good playmaker. You don't have that combination, that package. And that's why I would lean towards more. But again, my worry is just that, yeah, some team's going to take him for the versatility factor and the speed, knowing that, yes, all those other things you said are accurate, being on the second line, not having the same chances, all of that.
Yeah, I think if they're both available, it's gonna be a tough choice for the Flyers, if these are the 2 that they're choosing between at that point. Alright, the Flyers have some more choices they're gonna have to make given yesterday's trade to get rid of Ivan Provorov. We got the 22nd overall pick. We're gonna talk about our strategy in approaching who to take there coming up next.
Well, if I have a choice in shorts, Rachel, I'm choosing Bird Dogs because they feel great. The shorts and the pants, they're all good. The stretchy fabric is really comfortable. I've been wearing them on long flights, especially through big delays and layovers. And they really held up. They hold up walking my dog. They hold up going to a ball game. They're good for tailgating. All of those things. They're really well made. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl and enter promo code lockedonnhl for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free Yeti style tumbler off. You won't want to take your bird dogs off, we promise you.
So, Russ, the 22nd overall pick, not a position we thought we would be in, having to
Right.
discuss this. And, as we get later in the first round, the pick becomes a little bit more wide open in terms of who might be available, what the right strategy is here. Because, again, this is a deep draft and there's a lot of good choices to pick between. It's just a matter of what direction you want to go in and if there's a cohesive strategy between the 7th overall and the 22nd overall and how you want to approach both. So, we talked a little bit yesterday about will they take a defenseman, having a second pick.
Hmm.
And then, looking at the past and what the Flyers have done when they've had 2 picks in the first round, they've taken a little bit of a risk with the second pick. Jay O'Brien was certainly that, and looked at a slightly different position. I mean, you also have to think, oh, Travis Konechny was that second pick as well
Hmm.
in the first round for the Flyers, so that turned out pretty well, I would
Oh,
say.
yeah.
So, what do you think? What's your approach to this 22nd overall pick, and when you're even thinking about best player available, because there's so many different options here.
No, I'm not thinking about best player available. Actually, um, surprisingly, I'm thinking about like a guaranteed going to try and get it to the NHL pick because this draft is super important. And even though you like the coaches that say take home run swings, uh, I don't know if the Flyers can afford to do that now. I would have liked them to have done it in the past, but
Hmm.
right now I don't think they could afford to do that because when you trade someone like Ivan Provorov with his quality, and he is quality, if you don't think he is, then you're not watching him, and you're not realizing what he was before things started to go a little sour in Philly. Um, you you don't want to elongate this whole process with the rebuild. And one way to not do that is to nail both of these picks. And so I think there's a fair amount of pressure to do that. And I think they're going to still try and do that rather than try and take a home run swing. So looking at the availables, like as an example, like Matthew Wood will be long gone. He may even end up like in the top 10 because someone decides he's one of the younger guys here.
Yeah.
We have to work on his speed, but he's got all the scoring already, a heavy shot, plays center, uh, great on the power play, wise beyond his years. Like he could rise up last minute. He does really good things at the combine too. He's more talented than Boucher was, and I think he was a 10th pick, right, for Ottawa. So I think if you look at it that way, uh, Wood isn't there. I like Otto Stenberg. I don't think I would take him in that spot. I'm a little worried that he's maxed out as far as what his ceiling is, but he's got a high floor.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a really strong kid, got a really good shot. I've seen him come through in games where they need a goal, and he's able to do that. But that's what I would worry about there. Daniil But, I think if that's how you pronounce it. I haven't done much on him. I've been in meetings, but I haven't seen a lot. I'm pretty sure he's going to be gone before then, though. Like I just,
And he's over in the MHL, KHL system, so it's
yeah,
harder to get a read on
yeah.
him
I can get it. Like
there.
I have it on Simashev, but Simashev won't be there. I'm pretty sure of that too. There's too much there. He's a 6'4" defenseman with tons of talent and a lot of ability, and so I just don't think he'll be there. Um, so it narrows down a list a little bit. You do have guys like Gavin Brindley, that is his range. Quentin Musty, that could be his range. Could go a little sooner, but maybe not. Um, so that's also a possibility. And then you have Tom Willander, who is
Mhm.
a Swedish defenseman who is really good. He is not a superstar. He's sort of like understated. He's 6'1", 180. I've seen him play in international play, and then I've watched his other video. He's really smart passer, really good skater, does everything really, really well. So he could be one of those guys where, I don't think you're getting maximum offense out of him. No, but I think, much like the Flyers just picked up in a trade, Helgi Grans, he does like 3 or 4 things very well, and then there's some offense in the game too. But he's a plug and play kind of defenseman, and he's getting to the NHL. Like you just watch this guy, he's getting there.
Right, that's what's interesting to me about the 22 pick in particular, just where it falls, because, it seems like there's a few defensemen that are above that, that'll be gone, that are the top defensemen in this draft.
Yeah,
Then there's a
Sandy
low
gone.
Yeah, like all those guys will be gone. There's
Weinbach
like
will be
those
gone. Simashev will be gone.
Right. So, but then there's this kind of pause where like the next bunch of best availables are all forwards, and then you don't really get back to defensemen until later in the first round, top of the second round. And so, like you think about the Flyers potentially taking a defenseman here, it might be a reach if you're just going best player available, just based on how
Right.
the cookie crumbles here.
But I did say people can go back to the other show. Um, they could reverse this strategy, and it wouldn't shock me of going defense and then going offense. Wouldn't shock me at all. I wouldn't do it that way because I think you're losing some value. But if they have a plan and say this is, matching up to what we want to do, then they might do that. But yeah, at this 22nd pick, I think Musty and Willander are your best bets. I like Brindley a lot. Brindley's a little bit of a smaller guy. I don't know if the Flyers are doing that. So
Right.
that's the other thing. He's super great motor, good offensively, defensively. He was terrific on Michigan. Like you saw him every moment, every shift. Like he lights up the ice. But again, we do have this problem on the Flyers about smaller guys until they finally take one. So we'll see how all that plays out. But right now, I would say Willander or Musty. And look, if I could get Musty there, I probably have to take Musty even over Willander simply because uh, the power forward situation in this league, if you can get one that really can skate, that is what the Flyers say they're looking for, and they'd actually have it there in that pick.
Yeah. Well, certainly a lot of intriguing options here. We're going to dig more into detail on some of these guys as the next couple weeks play out, getting closer to the draft. Flyers could make more moves and change what picks they have as well. So we'll be on top of that if it happens, and talk to you about it then. Like I said, for your everydayers tomorrow, we are going to talk about our approach to the Locked On NHL mock draft and so much more. As a reminder, we want to hear from you. You can send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ at Matt Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.